and In Between, the podcast for neurodivergent weirdos and queers who forget about struggling to adult, we're struggling to human.
At least that's what everyone's telling us.
You're right.
Per usual. Hey, I'm Angela, bringing sense to the conversation. From here on my soapbox, I shed light on the things society doesn't want you to talk about. You know, the real shit that matters: intersectional thinking, sexuality, queerness, neurodiversity, consent, and the fact that self-care is bullshit. For me, it's all about community and how we can care for each other.
And I'm Molly, giving a big fork you to cookie cutter solutions. I help burnt out, busy as fuck, neurodivergent, and queer entrepreneurs make shit happen by providing out-of-the-box solutions and sustainable systems to grow your biz. For me, it's all about doing what makes sense for your brain.
Enough with the chit-chat. Let's get to it.
Keep listening, and together we'll explore the drudgery, dreams, and all that shit in between. Get ready to call bullshit on what everyone's saying you should be doing,
as we navigate the spectrum between what really matters to you and the shit keeping you from it.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Angela and I have been kind of talking about what today's episode was going to be for a long time. And by long time, I mean like 3 weeks.
It's been a long 3 weeks. Let's just be honest.
Such a long 3 weeks. Between being sick and work and launching things and hosting things, there's just been a lot going on between these two humans right here. And so today's conversation is all about end of school year transitions, because this doesn't affect just one type of person or people with children or teachers. It really affects everybody because of how all of our relationships work. And I was talking to Angela earlier about, like, if your support human has children, even if you don't have children, that means your support human cannot support you in ways that they normally would.
Or that you have to change your normal schedule to accommodate their schedule, even if they can still support you in all those ways. Like, it affects our schedule. I don't have a child at home anymore, but
Right.
You do, and that affects our schedule. And how dare you?
I know. I'm such a jerk. But like, there's a lot, and there's a lot of moving parts for the humans that do have kids, as well as teachers, like going from working 10 to 12-hour days trying to keep these humans happy and learning, and then going to, oh, by the way, goodbye, we'll see you next year, maybe,
or not. Yeah,
right. Maybe. Yes. But yeah, so it was kind of interesting because Angela is the researcher of the two of us when we prep for episodes. And the thing we realized is there are zero resources for adults for transitioning into the summer.
it's not even part of the conversation. Like,
No.
now you and I have talked to people, and like when Rebecca was here, we talked with Rebecca about this, and we've talked to some other people who are interested in having that conversation, because they've seen what happens in the school year to some people, and how it affects some teachers differently than others, and some parents differently than others. And um, there's nothing out there. This definitely needs to be like an umbrella project that we
Right.
work on, because there's not even stuff out there for kids for end of school year. We found one book, and we'll share that resource here at some point throughout this. But other than one book that for kids that talks about end of school year transitions, that's just not part of the conversation. Everybody just assumes, like, yay, school's out, woohoo, party time.
Right. And I mean, it honestly, when we picked this subject, I wasn't thinking, oh, we have some novel idea. I was thinking, oh, we'll just talk about something that everybody's talking about and we'll put our Molly Angela spin on it as we do with many other subjects. So when Angela was like, there's nothing, I was like, oh, okay. So if you've really never thought about how you address summer and the different changes that happen. I mean, let's talk about weather change, and seasonal allergies are a transition in and of itself in this time anyway.
Yep.
Um, so, you know, if you've never thought about it and you're listening, like, just keep an open mind and be like, oh, shit, I do deal with this. I need to figure out a plan. Um,
Yeah, and keep
okay.
an open mind and let go of some of the shame of maybe some of the behaviors that you have and some of the frustrations and emotions or not being able to pick up on your emotions.
Hmm.
Increased sensory sensitivity or seeking behaviors. You know, give yourself some grace because even though it's not a big part of the conversation, this is a big part of our lives.
Yes. Which brings me to the next point. We kind of touched on this a few minutes ago. Like, this really is for all humans, regardless of neurotype, regardless of things. Everybody is coming into this transition with a different mindset and a different opinion, and they're all valid as long as we're not forcing this on someone else. So I mean, they're still valid. Just don't force it on
Yeah.
somebody else.
Which is why we used neurodiversity in the title
Mhm.
for the episode instead of neurodivergent because it absolutely does affect everybody across the board regardless of how your brain works.
Right. And this is kind of where some of that contention can come through is if you do have friends who are neurotypical, they might be like, yes, it's summer. I can do what I want. I can do all these fun things and it's amazing. And you're probably thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like it, I lost my rigid schedule. I have no alone time. I don't know any of like these aren't known variables. I don't know what's happening. And there's all these fucking people every time I turn around. It's
Yeah.
noisy and annoying, and it's so damn hot and humid, and I'm sweating in my boobs. Like, so there's a lot of difference between how you're interpreting things and how they're interpreting things. And just remember that sometimes people process different than others. That doesn't make it less frustrating when you're trying to communicate why it is frustrating to you if they've never thought about it or considered there being a difference. Um,
And let's
uh,
drop this whole like yay if you're not a yay person.
yeah,
You don't have to be. And I feel like a lot of people are doing that. I mean, I've witnessed that myself where people are celebrating this thing, but then they come and they have a conversation with me, and I say, no, this is hard, and I don't like this. And they go, yeah, I know, but isn't that weird? I'd rather, yeah. And it's like, it's only weird because people don't talk about it because in actuality, you know,
right. Well, and like I started listing some in my little rant there, but it makes total sense to dread the summer. And I will say, like, for those with little humans that they are trying to wrangle for the summer, like follow their lead. I wasn't sure how my kiddo was going to perceive this summer break. And to them, it is like a saving grace because they hate school right now. And so I'm kind of hyping it up. It's the
yep,
summer because that's the emotion that they're having. If you
yep,
have a little who is not having that same emotion, then they're like, but I love my teacher and I love learning and I love going to school, then definitely follow that grief pattern with them because
yep.
they're going to need to process that. So, some of the things that you might experience some loss or sadness towards, like I mentioned before, rigid schedules. Like, even if it was like an alternating schedule or whatever, because you're in high school or you're in college, there was still some rigidity to your day. You get up, you get ready, you go to school or whatever you're having, and then you come home, and there's this predictable type of plan that you can
Yeah.
rely on. and it's comforting and comfortable.
That reminds me of when Cody was here, when Cody Lukens with STEMAGs, when he was here, he talked about the motivational um, type called NCUP,
Yeah.
and that's what you're talking about. So, that it creates there's some urgency that is created when you have to do something because your schedule says, oh, you have class at X time and you have to be there, or oh, you have to be at work at 7:30 every morning,
Yep.
or whatever. For some people, that you must do this is the only thing that helps them. And then so when they no longer have that have to or must, setting their own schedule and creating their own, and then following through with that, and I like to call it keeping appointments with yourself.
Mhm.
um, that is really, really hard for some people. um,
Yes.
but that's kind of what you have to do, is you have to make appointments
Mhm.
with yourself or with other people to create that urgency. And when it's to yourself, that urgency kind of falls away. It shouldn't, but for
Right.
most humans it does.
Well, and there's different ways that you can kind of force yourself to do steady things at varying costs. Like you could volunteer at a local nonprofit and just
Mhm.
have a regular schedule with them where I'm going to come in from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and volunteer and do the things that you need me to do. So that's a free one.
Yep.
And you get to give back to an organization that you care passionately about. You can
And
schedule
we really
coffee.
appreciate volunteers.
Right. All nonprofits really need you to help. Um, there's in like specifically in your area, if you are in the queer community or an ally to the queer community, which still makes you in the queer community, you can work with the organization that's putting on Pride as well. That's another option. You can schedule like set coffee dates every week with friends. You can, if you're a business owner, you can set an accountability group with a couple of peers so that you're rigidly doing certain things throughout the week. So there are ways to do stuff. You could register for a summer class at the community college, like like the non-credit classes. Like
Right.
there's different things that you can do to try
Swapping
and yep.
swapping with other parents, if you are a parent who doesn't have the funds to be
Yes.
able to afford to have a babysitter so that you can go do these things. That's like the summer becomes really expensive for some families.
Yeah.
Not all communities have uh, community programs that provide breakfast and lunch to students throughout, or to people. They're not students at that point, but to
Mhm.
kids throughout the summer, and that can become really difficult financially. So that's another
Yeah.
transition that happens during the summer. You've got some families who are like, yeah, we're going to go on vacation and we're going to spend thousands of dollars on vacation. And you have other families who are going, how many loaves of bread can I afford this week to make
Yeah.
peanut butter sandwiches? Right? Like
Yeah.
it's the transitions are there, and they're different for different people depending on your privilege and your lifestyle, and there's just so much that a lot of us don't think about.
Yes. Um and you say these profound things and then my brain dies cuz I'm like there needs to be a pragmatic pause here. Um so and there's not always availability of part-time jobs in the summer either with all the college students coming back and things like that. Um so I also understand that it's not like, hey, I am off for the summer. I'm a teacher. I need to like get a summer job or whoever you are. Um but yes, my brain
Well,
died.
the thing is, there are there are so many people who feel this profound shame
Oh,
because they don't transition like they think they should transition. Um, so let's talk about one of the areas of shame for parents
Mm,
who are like, I love my children, and I'm not going to say this out loud, but I'm going to hold this massive amount of shame inside because I'm dreading them being home from school. And instead of being able to look at that and say why, it has nothing to do with how much you love and care for your
mm-mm.
children. It creates a different environment for you at home, and usually that's a big sensory thing. Not it's not just about time, right?
Right.
It's the whole sensory environment changes. And you can kind of look at patterns. So for me, um, I had a very specific pattern that, even though I'm great at recognizing patterns for others, I definitely was not great at recognizing it for myself until my mom moved in with us for a couple of years. And she was like, "You are such a bitch." At the end of, at the end of the school year, when there's any kind of long break during the school year, she's like, "You are so angry." And of course she said angry. She never said you're such a bitch. Um, but that's
Same
what she
diff.
meant, right? That's what she meant. And that's okay too. Because really truly I got very frustrated, very anxious, very um jittery, and it took me 3 to 4 weeks at the end of the school year to get any kind of sense of new routine. Um, and it was really, really, really hard. And at that time, we didn't know that that I'm autistic. We
Yeah.
knew that I have ADHD. So I was trying to do all of these things, right? Um, Based on ADHD that went completely against what I needed for being autistic. So it was compounded, and I know that I'm not the only one. I know
Right.
that there are other people out there who have had this exact same experience, and I hope you hear this and know that it's not something wrong with you. It's not because you don't love your family. I was told this, right? Like I was told um that I should be spending more time with my family, that I shouldn't be coming into the school building, and I was begging, please, I need to come in. I need to have access to the building. I don't care if I have to use like a little custodial closet. I need to be able to come into the building every day in the morning.
Yeah.
Please, please. Like I would cry because I needed it so bad. But it was like, no, no, you don't need that.
Yeah. And
But I did. I
you
really did.
did. You really did. And like, it's terrible that like there are, I see this as a person taking their personal boundaries and forcing another human to use their personal boundaries as that other human's boundaries, which is completely not okay. Like that
Right.
defeats the purpose of freaking boundaries. And like it's not like teachers think that they're going to get paid extra to come in. Like and it's they needed that, like you needed that for your own sanity and comfort, and you were going to work on things. Like it was a safe place for you, and taking that away made it harder for you to transition. So I feel like a shitty move.
And my son enjoyed it. He liked coming to school with me.
Oh,
So
I
it
always
wasn't like
loved going
even
with my aunt. Yeah.
yeah, like even when he was older. In fact, when he came home after boot camp, he came to school with me. Like he enjoyed like coming and hanging out with me at school. It was part of what we did. I mean, when he was younger, he happily came in and looked at the seventh grade math books and was like, "Oh, this is great. I'm in fourth grade, but this is the math that I'm doing," and he enjoyed that. And so to have another person tell you what you need because that's their normal is very frustrating.
Yes. Oh my God. I used to love helping grade papers, like grade worksheets. It was so much fun. I got a red Sharpie. Um, yes. Um, and like, I feel like that also falls into this category of, for a lot of people, there's this, you're talking about the shame of parents and being with their kids all the time. I mean, the overstimulation is real there because it's not just like, oh, they're around me all the time. It's incessant mama, dad, baba, whatever. Constantly calling your name. It's constantly needing to, because they've been entertained every day by school. Like, regardless if they liked it or not, there was a physical activity at all times while at school. And so they're expecting that from you because they need that structure as well. And
Mhm.
it's like, that is not something you are necessarily inherently used to doing. And it's like, just go outside and play. Just go outside and play.
Right, which is
So
not what our world does anymore.
right. Um, and they're also used to being around people all the time. So being by themselves might be scary because they're used to the comfort of being around people. Um, there's just like, they're always hungry. Like, there's so much tasks for you to do. There's more people at home all the time. The dishes pile up. So now you have to touch water, dirt. And like, there's all these things that require all these very overstimulating things,
Yeah.
which means that you need more recovery time, probably, as doing the things that you like, or you've lost all your alone time as well. And so like, it's harder to recover. Like, it's harder to uh what I call potato status. It's hard to avoid couch potato status, um because there's just so much. And um like, if you end up yelling at them more than normal, it's okay because you're overstimulated. Just remember to apologize when you can and say, look, I was having big feelings and this.
Yeah.
Because when you tell them, not, it doesn't make it better that you yelled at them and then told them, but it does teach them that having big feelings is normal and
Mhm.
that you can still have a good relationship even if you totally lose your shit sometimes. Um,
Right.
um, I think the other thing with these big transitions is like, during the school year, there are known variables. Like, my child might get sick and I might have to stay home. There's, oh, we might have a doctor's appointment and I have to pick them up early. There's all these things that are known variables.
Yep.
But the summer comes and it feels like there's unending numbers of variables that, like, it's impossible for you to anticipate all of them.
Right.
Like, you might be like, we're going to go to the zoo today, show up at the zoo, and their favorite animal is off exhibit.
Yeah.
Or you go to the jump place and, God, well, whatever forbid, the kid twists their ankle. Like, there's so many different variables that could happen. And there's not going to be the ability to always have a plan, I guess is my point. And
Yeah.
especially if you're the kind of person that's like, I need to have a plan and think through every scenario so that I have pre-worked out how I'm going to respond in all those scenarios. The summer is very hard to do that because you can't imagine all the different things and all those things.
Right.
I think if I say all those things one more time, you should like poke me through the screen.
Well, I
Um,
want to add on to that. Actually, before you
yeah.
go on, I want to add on to that because there's the other side of that. You
Mhm.
are a parent who has no problem being, just everything changing. You go with the flow, you're super flexible, and you do not understand why your kid is so unhappy
Yes.
because your kid needs that kind of structure and you don't. And therefore, you don't understand how to create this structure. And so if you have a child or a partner who really struggles at this time, let's look at patterns in the past, have some conversations, and also reach out to friends and support groups and email us,
Mhm.
send us a message and ask, like, there's just there are so many different ways that we interact with each other, interpersonal relationships, that when it doesn't make sense to us how this other person in our life is behaving, um, look at it. Like, take a minute to actually step back and try to get outside of yourself, your personal experience, and try to understand what theirs is, so that things can be put in place to the transitions are going to suck no matter what. They're always going to suck,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's so just deal with that. The transitions are going to suck. Okay, cool. Now you know that that's going to happen. So, what can you do to offset some of the suck?
Right.
That's really all you can do at that point, and that really is part of recognizing patterns and seeing how things have been in the past, what kinds of changes, and then learning, trying to put some of that, the stuff that is helpful, when
Yeah.
when this person is happy, what things are happening when this person is happy? How can we now set this up now when they're not happy, and see if that works? Do some little baby action research in there, right?
Yes. Well, and like, this also brings up the point of people who struggle to enforce schedules, like
Mhm.
struggle, like they might be able to like I know a couple people who are really good at planning and really good at writing out schedules, but they are shit at enforcing them.
Mhm.
um, and that's okay. Like that is also like something to know about yourself is maybe you need an outside support person to be like, "Hey, did you eat breakfast? It's 7:30. You should have eaten breakfast by now." Or, "Hey, go on a walk. It's 10. You said you were going to go on a walk at 10." Like
Yep.
whatever that is. Um, like, and trying to like if you need change and that constant like, "Ooh, what's new?" Like have a block that's like outside around the city activity where it's like, okay, we're going to try a new park today and then we're going to go to the zoo tomorrow and we're going to do this, so that you kind of have a change of flow. And if you don't have a zoo pass or you don't have the ability to do that, go to your local library, because sometimes you can check out zoo passes or kids museum passes or things like that, so that you
Mhm.
can still do a variety of activities within your um, budget,
Right.
whatever the word I'm looking for is. But like there are multiple different ways to like crack the egg here. Is that even a phrase? That I made it up. Okay.
Sure,
Um,
sure. That
there's
that works.
different ways to
I
crack
get
an egg,
it.
guys.
I get
Um,
it. That makes perfect sense to me.
okay. Um, and so like if you need rigid structure and you're good at enforcing it, like if school's ending in a couple days or if it's ending in a month, either way, like sit down and kind of plan what you want to do. Write that schedule so that you can be like, is this right? I need to tweak it and do that and have that plan. If you are the person who's like, where do I start? What do I
Mhm.
do? Then find your schedule buddy. Find the person who's loves doing that for fun, and kind of work with them to build something for yourself. And then if you are the chaos demon that needs to some help, where you can write the schedule but you need somebody to help you do it because
Yeah.
otherwise chaos ensues, find your chaos demon wrangler, and get some
Mhm.
accountability up in here for that. um,
Right.
okay, we talked about that, we talked about this.
So let me bring
um,
up something in that lane that you haven't actually brought up yet.
okay.
You are somebody who doesn't make a schedule because of a fear or a knowing
Mhm.
that somebody's going to fuck your schedule up.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right? So that
Mhm.
this is me. I'm very much talking about my experience. For years and years and years, I thought, oh, it's the ADHD. I can't stick to a schedule. I hate schedules. I get so angry about schedules. Okay, anybody who knows me even a little bit knows how much I love a good schedule.
Yeah. It's essential to your existence, but
Right?
okay.
So to think about me being that person who is so resistant. And I said this adamantly for years. I have ADHD. I hate schedules. It makes me miserable. I can't follow a schedule. And actually, what it was is I need a rigid schedule and I need people to respect my boundaries around this schedule. And I need to be really good at self advocating for my schedule. And what that might look like for somebody at home in the summer is I'm going to go in this room for this amount of time every day or whatever, and y'all are going to leave me the hell alone. Right? You are going to find something to do. I'm going to put a sign up or whatever, something that helps people understand. Don't knock on, unless you're dying or bleeding, don't knock on, like
Yeah.
it is okay to put those things in place. I wish that I would have done that more way back when. I wish that I would have understood that part of myself. Um, and, obviously ADHD is a thing for me. Otherwise, the medication for it wouldn't work.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
But the medication works really well for me. Therefore, we know that that actually is a thing. And also, I have this other part of my brain that works in a different way. And if I would have had that diagnosis 24 years ago as well, I don't know exactly what things would have looked like, but it would have looked different. And I would have been able to advocate for my needs in a much different way and maybe not have that 4 week, it might only be 2 weeks. There still is going to be that transition period, but
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't have been so painful for me and the people around me had I known and understood, been able to work with my sensory environment, been able to really advocate for this schedule that I needed. So if you're that person, I see you. That's
Mhm.
valid. That's valid as well.
Yeah, and it makes me realize, like, for those of you that can, like, summer when you don't have the need to have your shit together for the kids in the morning, if you're a teacher or, this is the time to, like, go down that self-discovery, self-diagnosis rabbit hole for sure, because any emotions that are invoked by, "Oh my god, I think I really have this thing," like, there's that grief process that you kind of go through when you have a self-diagnosis or a formal diagnosis. Like, the summer would kind of be a good time to have that because you um really have some space to navigate that without necessarily having it affect your work. And it might make it so that the next school year is easier in some ways because you'll actually have some more self awareness going into the
Yeah.
school year. I realize for some people that might also be not a good time because you don't have the support structure that you normally have. So if you feel like if you go down that, you're like, I don't have the support structure, I need to do that, then don't. But if you I just feel like the openness of the schedule for a little bit does allow some freedom to rabbit hole down there.
I
Um,
mean, at least it allows you to maybe engage in those conversations, maybe schedule some time to do some research or some reading, or join a local group, or
mhm.
there are different things that could happen in there. Go to the library.
Yes.
Like take your kids to the library. There are so many kids now who don't go to the library. They've never been in a library. So that would be a good time, maybe. Even like for those people who love to go to the bookstore, and let's say you go into Barnes and Noble and the kids are sitting around and they're looking at their little books at the table, sit on the floor with your kid while you're looking through a book that is about something that you're interested in, whether it's
Right.
neurodiversity or something else. That ask for some support. I'm all about community care. Ask
Mhm.
for some support for people to take, to trade babysitting days and that sort of thing so that you can have that time. It is a good time if you can cocoon in the summer and really
Mhm.
like get into that self-awareness thing. That can be good, but please don't do that without support.
Yeah,
Please
no.
don't do that alone.
Yeah. Definitely make sure you have people that can check on you because it can be like a Pandora's box situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can people can easily get into depression and grief and it can be really really serious and traumatic. So having support is important. Reach out
Yes,
to us if you need
absolutely.
resources or to find a group or, Molly, let's actually put all of our resources as far as like getting some support and some help
Okay.
for those who may be experiencing some of that grief and need something. Let's put that
Yeah,
in our resources today.
absolutely. Um, oh, so going back to me and my chaos schedule, um, just transitioning back to your previous subject there.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I have a family of 3 neurodivergent humans. So, well, in my immediate so 2 have ADHD and autism, and then I am bipolar with extra neurospicy traits here and there, and Tourette's. Um, Tourettic. Um, so sorry, Angela sent me an article about how we should not say I'm a person with Tourette's. We should call ourselves say I'm Tourettic, but that just kind of to me sounded like a heretic because of the way it was like reading. Anyway, it's a long story, but now I just
Yeah.
find it hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so over the
I
years, I
definitely wasn't telling you how you should
no,
identify. That is not why I sent the article.
no.
For anybody who's listening, it was because I knew what Molly's reaction to that article would be. And that's where that came from. So,
Yes.
yes.
No, she wasn't forcing that on me, to be clear. I just thought it was funny. Anyway, and if you identify as a Tourettic person, then by all means,
Yes,
that's fine.
exactly.
Oh, so I absolutely love schedules and having a consistent schedule so that I know what I'm working on every day. I can actually plan task time. Um, Now before I was medicated, it was really hard to handle that because if I wasn't in mania, I could not function and I couldn't do the things that I needed to do. While in mania, I am one hot worker. Like I'm
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
Um, but those are not controllable. But I would also have the chaos of um 2 ADHD people wanting to mess with my schedule at all times. Like I would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna read my book," and next thing I know, I'm somehow playing Paw Patrols mixed with
Yeah.
Bluey, and like it just constantly rolling with it. So I definitely don't have as rigid a schedule anymore because the frustration of having a schedule and somebody destroying it is more disabling than having a
Absolutely.
schedule that's open and kind of flowing with it and bringing some structure to the activities that are requested. So
Yeah.
for me, it's I'm just going to leave it open. Like my kiddo's kind of occupied. I'll do the dishes while they're occupied because I know in 2 minutes they're going to ask me to do something and I can stop doing the dishes in the middle of doing the dishes to help.
Yeah.
Um,
And
or,
we even
hey,
actually talked about this, right? Like,
yeah,
because decision fatigue at that point becomes a legit problem.
yes,
So we talked about, okay, let's make lists of these different things that we can reference when we're feeling tired, when we're feeling exhausted, when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're the sensory thing is
hmm,
just in the way of being able to make a decision. And that way you have these different all of these
yes,
different levels of things to access, and that can be a good way to address that so that you still have some semblance of not necessarily a schedule but some structure there, and you don't have
yeah,
to expend the extra energy in going, okay, everything that I planned just went out the window. um,
yes.
and now I have to figure out something. Now you don't have to figure it out because you've got a list that says I can do X, Y, or Z.
Yes. Now I will add a layer to this. Um, Before I was diagnosed as bipolar was when we were having those conversations
Yeah.
mostly. And it really was the fact that um I was in a state of distress which
Mhm.
added to the decision fatigue because I
Yep.
did not have, like, as much as I had certain levels of executive function, I didn't have access to other pieces. So I just had very limited amounts, especially if I was in mania, I had all the executive function of the world. But
Yeah.
if I wasn't, I had minimal access to that. And so I was using it all where I could, like making sure your child is fed. Um
Yeah.
those
Mhm.
types of things. And so same thing I'm noticing for my partner with ADHD, the ADHD side of things. Prior to medication, the executive function was so minute that they couldn't do everything that they wanted. And there was just so much frustration and anger
Yep.
because there was absolute want with no ability to do. So I
Yeah.
say all of this to kind of give you some self reflection of, like, if you have no medication, I'm not saying you have to get medication. I'm just saying that if you are constantly in this state of distress, and you just can't do the things, it might just be because your brain can't do the things, not because you don't want to do the things or you're
Right.
lazy or any of these things. You might
Yeah.
just need some assistance. Because since I've been on medication, since my partner's been on medication, it's a night and day difference. Was there transition in those things? Oh, fuck yes.
Yeah.
I spent a good 3 months feeling like an empty shell of a person because I lost all of my emotion,
Yep.
and it's back. Don't get me wrong, like, I have medicine to help me regain that. But, um, the transition was worth it to be able to actually do things and be able to get things done. It doesn't change who I am as a person, but it definitely changes, quality of life. So
Yeah.
if you don't have medication and you're kind of in this self-diagnosis area and you're like, I don't know if I really need to talk to anybody about this. I don't know if it's like a legit thing, but you are seriously struggling and you have the capability to see somebody and gain some medication, I would at least navigate the possibility because
Yeah.
it might change your life. So that is my only
Yeah.
caveat to the chaos schedule and adjusting with all the lists and stuff is I was literally trying to fight something that was it was a battle I was never really going to win, I guess is
Right.
my point.
Because sometimes lists, it's not just a list, right?
No.
Like that's one of those things that people are like, "Oh, just make a list." No, you can't just make a list. For some people, a list is a support piece that can
Mhm.
help you and can help you communicate that to somebody else who can step in and support. Like, right, when we were talking about this,
Right.
it was how can your partner use your list to support you when,
Right.
because we can't expect our partners and our support people to know all the things, but if we
Right.
have that list or something else in place that helps communicate for us, then they have access for it. But that's not the answer. And don't let people shame you into thinking that, because for some people, making a list is a shame inducing because they can't access that list because they do need medication or they do need some other support, or they've made a list, but they haven't changed their sensory environment. Everything else is still the same, and now I've added a list. That doesn't help it.
Right.
It
Or
doesn't
they're
do
making a
anything.
list of giant things. Like, I'm
Yeah,
going to clean the house.
right,
Well, that
right.
takes about 10,000 things. So, unless you're going to write each individual, and especially for, like, I say especially just because I've been watching all of these talks on ADHD, but especially for humans who have a dopamine deficit, like, if you're giving yourself unrealistic checklist items, you're gonna hate your checklist. And
Yeah,
it's funny because if you actually break it down to the minute things and you did start checking it off and you did get tiny little dopamine bursts, you would probably do a little. I'm not saying you would, but you might actually see some success with that. But you would have to, it's this counter like issue of like, do you actually know how, like, not because something's wrong, but you might not be capable of breaking it down
of
more than
breaking it
I need
down,
to
right?
clean the
Like,
house. So unless you have a support person going, you want to clean the house today. All right, we're going to start with one room and we're going to clean up all the square toys, clean up all the hair toys with hair, clean up
yeah,
all of the, like, you really have to break it down. And so if you cannot do that breakdown, yeah, those lists are going to be
Oh, just brutal. Absolutely
brutal.
brutal. Yeah, 100%. And, of course, I am a ClickUp fan. So I'm just
Yes, you
going
are.
to say for anybody who maybe hasn't looked at this and likes like tech and apps and that sort of thing, I love ClickUp for exactly the reason that you just said. Number one, it's pretty to look at. It makes sense. Um, it, it breaks down. I could put in there clean the house, and then I can have
Mhm.
all of these subtasks, and I can go
And your
in and go
subtasks
check,
can have
check,
subtasks.
and my subtask, yes, and I can go. Oh, and then you can have checklists inside there as well. So you can go
Mhm.
in and be like check done, check done, check done. You can have this list, and you can work on it over a period of time and still see, oh yeah, I'm actually working toward this big goal, but I'm getting the little things that, yes,
Yes.
for
And
people who like that kind of thing,
yes.
it's great. For people who don't like that kind of thing, it's overwhelming and you hate it.
And there's an alternative to ClickUp. There's Asana as well, which is
Yep. And
gaining more
Notion, like there's a
and
lot.
Notion.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And I would just say if you want, like for me, as much as I have not been paying attention to it lately, digital checklists are better than paper checklists because digital checklists yell at me. Because you can set alarms and they turn red and then all these things. Um, uh, I have found that clients who have ADHD or ADHD as part of their neurospicy ramen, they end up wanting ClickUp more. And then
It's so
more of the
customizable.
so custom. Well, it's yes. And then people whose autistic side are a little heavier than their ADHD side sometimes tend to like Asana more. I knew you like Notion first, and then you found ClickUp, and it was like the combination of Asana and Notion together, and you were like, yay!
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
like,
there's Obsidian, which is this whole other thing. Like I like each of them for their own purposes. And for
mhm,
me, ClickUp combines all of it in a
yes,
way that works for my brain.
yes, and I have switched to ClickUp to help better facilitate for clients, but I am definitely struggling. So, and I'm a super techie person. So sometimes it has nothing to do with the tech. It has to do with how your brain segments information. So
Yep.
don't feel bad if a system doesn't work for you. It has to do with how you process information, not what type of person you are.
Yeah, don't go
Um,
out and buy the system until you've tried it out. Like all of
yeah.
these things, you can try them. Use the trial or the free version for like 30 days, even
Yes.
longer if you can, 6 weeks if you can, so that you don't get into that. Um, oh, I love this because it's really exciting at first. And some people go down this big rabbit hole and spend all of their time, effort, and energy just in that. And then they find out once it's not novel anymore that they
Mhm.
hate it.
I mean, and if you're just like, I just need something simple, Google has Google Tasks. So,
Yep.
like, if you're a Google user, just stick to Google Tasks because it integrates into your email and to your computer or your calendar. Also, using your calendar is great, a great way to do it too, because you can do like
Yep.
if you're more of like my calendar is my Bible, you can always just add tasks to your calendar.
Tasks, reminders, events, like there are different ways that you can
Yeah.
you can do those things in there. You can color code them in the way that works for you. Um, yeah, there are things out there that gamify it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So, speaking of transitions, there's all this shit that you can try.
right.
The
Um,
summer maybe is the time to do that rather than trying to do it in the middle of a school year when you're
mhm. I
um,
think
have
though,
other things expected of
yeah,
you.
and I think though I just noticed what time it is. We're really good at like I'm like, "Oh, it's 16 minutes. We got plenty of time." And then I look up again, "Oh, it's 49 minutes."
I know.
Um so I think the last thing I'm going to say is the best advice I can give you for scheduling and like adjusting is reflect. If you are getting frustrated continually day after day with what is happening in your schedule or not happening in your schedule, um don't force the square peg into the round hole. Like, if it's probably not working. So like reflect on it and just be like, oh, I need to blow it up and start again. It's okay. Keep the pieces that are working, add in new pieces to try out.
Yep.
But blowing it up and starting over again is my motto, I swear, other than make shit happen. But like there's I there is a for me it's comforting to be like, yeah, this didn't work. I'm starting over. Let's start scratch. It's kind of like starting a new notebook or getting a new pack of Sharpies. Like if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
But the
Um
key to that is that thing that you just said. Take what works from that, right? And
yes.
blow up the rest. But the stuff
Y-
that works, you pull out, you save, you protect,
yes.
blow up the other stuff, and then that's how you over time build a system that works for you. Because
Correct.
some people will blow up everything, and all of that stuff that worked now has gone too, and then so that when they try this new thing, they don't transition, and then so it feels really overwhelming. But if we take the stuff that does work, when we can identify that, and sometimes we need help and support identifying that. And um, this, I guess, will be my last thought for the day.
Okay.
A lot of people don't like going to therapists because they feel like, oh, I'm just in this space of where I just have to talk about my trauma all of the time. And, um, but coaching is expensive and isn't covered by my insurance. So as a coach, I always talk to my clients first. And I said, okay, so you have insurance. What is it that you need from a therapist? Is that something that you can advocate for? Because look, if your insurance will pay for it, let's find a therapist that will work. Let's find a therapist who does some of that coaching. So you can advocate. The point of this
Yes.
is if you are struggling with these things and these transitions and you have access to healthcare to provide you supports, number one, you can fire your therapist. You can fire your
Absolutely.
coach. You can fire anybody. If you go and you advocate for yourself and they don't listen, you can go somewhere else. You are not beholden to them for anything. That's huge and important to remember. But go in and tell them very specifically, I am struggling with this. This is a pattern for me. Can you help me? And give them that specific thing. I find the pattern that I find in my clients is they didn't want to just go in and talk. They didn't want that. So therapy didn't work for them because they didn't want to just talk and work in trauma. They wanted quick, practical solutions with a positive result that they could have each week and build on. So if your therapist isn't doing that and that is something that you want, it might just be because they don't know that's what you want. And if you tell them and are specific and self advocate in that way, you might get what you want and it might be paid for by your insurance if you have it.
Yes. I'm going to add one thing to that. If you are a vet and you're going to the VA and you have asked for a mental health provider and they keep giving you a social worker, call them again. Stop seeing the social if you are not enjoying your work with the social worker, tell them no and tell them exactly what you want. I want a psychologist, I want a psychiatrist, and be very specific, because if they don't have that, they can get you telehealth with somebody else in a different region, and if that doesn't work, they can always get you care in the community. um
Yep.
so just a lot of vets don't get mental health support because the system is kind of broken, and they don't understand why you would need it or how that you need support. So
Yep.
you absolutely can get what you need if you, I mean, I had to yell at somebody. So
Yeah.
just making sure that that piece is there as a
Yep.
vet. Like, it's
You are
really
the
hard to get
expert
care.
on you.
Yes.
You are the expert on you. You get to choose the care that you get. And self advocacy is okay and good. Just because somebody is an expert in something doesn't mean that they're an expert on you.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I think we're ready.
Okay. I'm just taking a big breath because that I don't know. That feels good. Today's episode feels really, really good. I think we had some
Yes.
great conversations. I'm excited to hear people's thoughts. If you have thoughts on this, please send them to us.
The only thing we haven't
Molly, we needed to
Yes.
talk about something.
I know. I forgot. I was like, speaking of transitions, sorry to throw this guy, you guys, at the end of the episode. But it's the summer and summer schedules are chaos. And with all the traveling that my family will be doing and all the things that Angela is doing this summer, we decided to take the summer off. And we will be back in August. I really don't want to give an actual date because chaos.
Right.
But
It
it'll
will
be
not
like,
be before mid-August.
no, it will
be
not be
before
before
mid-August.
mid-August, but it will definitely be in August that we come back. And we're excited to come back. We are definitely coming back. Let me just be clear.
Yes. Yes.
We
If
are
you
not
want an
going
email,
anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere. If you want an email from us to let you know when we're coming back, then submit it on the form on our website to let us know, like, hey, give us your email so that we can do that, and we'll send out an email to everybody on the list to let them know the
Yes.
date that we are coming back. But it will not be before the third week of August.
Yes. But yes, we will miss you all during the summer, but we will be back. So
We absolutely will be back. We love this. We love y'all.
yes.
And this is something that we want to continue. And we also want to be aware of the things in life that happen, like
I would
no
okay,
school
sorry.
and transitions and
Yes. I would
brand new responsibilities with Umbrella Alliance US, which is now a 501c3 charitable organization. So that's what I'm going to be spending that extra time working on.
yes. I would say if there are things you want us to touch on in season 3, um please submit things or questions you have or struggles you're having. We'll definitely keep things anonymous, but we would love to make sure we're covering topics that are important to you, that are part of your journey. And getting those from you mean that we can specifically talk to you in episodes and help you.
Yeah, absolutely that. And it also helps us. We're going to next season try to bring in some more guests, and we can bring in the guests that you want us to bring in if we know what guests those are or what concerns, challenges, excitements you want to see from us.
So yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, cool. I am having a difficult time transitioning on this being our last episode for a couple of months. I think that's why we keep like blah, 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 blah. Anyway,
Yes.
hey y'all. Thanks for listening to Drudgery Dreams and In Between, a weekly live podcast coming to you every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific. We'll be back. Um, we'll be back mid to late August. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates when we're back. For all you podcast geeks, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We're on them all. If you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To catch all the latest from us, visit us at drudgeryanddreams.com and follow on your favorite social media platforms at Drudgery and Dreams. Thanks again. See you next time.
Oh, it helps to hit end.